You are listening to Integrity Radio. I'm your host, Lakeisha.
And I'm your co-host, Sandra Gage, CEO and President of Integrity Stewardship Enterprise.
And today we're talking about the three main financial stages of life.
Yes, there are three stages of life. There are three main financial stages of life. Stage 1 is when you enter the workforce. You get married and you have children. Stage 2 is when your family grows and you have career advancement. Stage 3 is when you receive your major promotions. You start thinking about retirement. You have grandchildren. And unfortunately, sometimes the death of a spouse.
It sounds like we know a lot of people that are in each one of these stages.
That's true.
Including ourselves.
That's true. Let's go into a little bit more detail about stage 1. Stage 1 is really the financial foundation development. Stage 1 is the development of a financial foundation. It's during this stage that you begin to develop your financial habits. Unfortunately, our kids, as they become adults in the school system, when they get released or when they graduate from high school, as young adults, they have a task of trying to understand how our financial system works. Did you know how it worked when you came out of school, Lakeisha?
Only because you told me.
Unfortunately, every child does not have that information. I just cannot understand why our school systems do not spend a lot of time teaching our kids how to handle money and how to be financially literate.
I have to say that they do have classes, even when I was in high school, for finance, but we didn't all take it. It was for those that were good in math that usually took those classes.
That's my point exactly. And I think it should be mandatory as a part of life skill that when you come out of school, you're able to understand how our financial system works. Young adults, they don't know. If they don't get it from their parents, if their parents never had any guidance, where are they going to get that information from? So they really need some guidance so that they can develop that firm financial foundation.
So how do they develop that?
Well, there are a lot of places that they can go now through the websites, the financial literacy websites the government has, where they can actually learn about money and how the money system works. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything like that when I was growing up. They also need to develop a good financial habit. Once they learn about finances, you can fall into bad financial habits or good financial habits. Unfortunately, a lot of our young people, they develop their habits from their family and from their friends. So if their parents didn't know how to handle money, they don't usually handle money as well either. If they saw them spending every dime that came in, they spend every dime that comes in. If they saw them using a lot of credit cards, they use a lot of credit cards.
So what would you tell young adults about credit cards when they're ready to begin using them?
I would tell them to control the use of their credit cards. I would tell them not even to use a credit card until they really understand how a credit card comes into play. Because a credit card is not free money. It is a charge on your future. So when you use a credit card, you do have to pay that money back.
With interest.
With interest. It's a promise. You're making a promise that you're going to buy this item and that you plan to pay it back with interest. And the other thing about credit cards, Lakeisha, there are people that have purchased things on credit card and that item that they purchased no longer exists, but they're still paying on that credit card because they're paying the minimum amount every month.
I know plenty of people that are doing that.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that they don't even realize it. As long as they're paying a low payment, if it's $10 or $15 a month, they don't realize what kind of financial situation that they're putting themselves in. So, my question to the audience is, how do you develop good financial habits? Do you think about developing good financial habits? What about you, Lakeisha? What have you done to develop a good financial habit?
Well, personally, I try to track everything that I spend, and I also try to save. And when I save, I try to think of it as paying myself. I don't want to spend all the money because I'm giving it to someone else as a consumer. I'm giving it to the company that I'm buying the product from, and I don't have anything to show for it because eventually whatever I bought is not going to last forever. It's going to break down, or it's going to need to be thrown away after it gets worn, and then I have nothing to show for the money I spent. So I have to keep reminding myself that I need to pay myself, so that later on I can look at all my hard work and say, okay, I paid myself a percentage of all this hard work, and this is what I have to show for it.
That's a very good point. And I was really glad to hear you say that you wanted to pay yourself first and that you wanted to track your expenses. I believe that's the key to financial success. In order for you to develop a spending plan, you need to know where the money is going, and you need to know where the waste is so that you can cut the waste out. When you cut the waste out, you can increase the amount of money that you have left over, so you have money for spending, and you have money for saving, and you have money for investing. So you seem to be on the right track. I hope our audience is really listening, and I hope that we have young people out there that are going to really look into this financial situation that they're in so that they can develop their financial foundation.
So one way that I figured would be an easy way for me to pay myself is to have my paycheck automatically put into a savings account.
That is a very good idea, and that is a good way to establish a savings pattern, because usually when you're first starting out saving as a young person straight out of high school, you're tempted to take every dollar and spend it on something because you're used to having your parents give you an allowance, and you go out and you buy clothes, you buy shoes, you buy video games. So to have that thought of at least having it automatically deposited in your account, that gets you in the mindset of thinking about saving on a pattern. And it get to the point where you'll be disciplined in saving, that you'll want to even increase whatever amount that you're putting in your savings account. The more you save, the more you'll be able to build your wealth for the future. So establishing a savings pattern is most important. Developing a strategy is what you need in order to build your wealth. Young people need to know that they can become a disciplined saver, that you don't have to spend every dime. In the old days, they said that you should save a penny for a rainy day, save for a rainy day, and that's still true today. And automatic transfers is the way to go to get started in that direction, to break the cycle of spending all your money.
So what do you think about young adults and insurance?
Well, one of the things about this stage number one is you're entering the workforce right out of high school, going into a job. Currently, you might be on your parents' insurance, their life insurance, health insurance, but it's a good idea if you have a job with benefits to make sure that you sign up for whatever benefits that they offer you. Life insurance, disability insurance, health insurance. That's important because you don't want to have something happen and then you have to dip into your savings account with these unexpected expenses to try to cover it. And especially since you're just starting out, you probably don't have enough to cover it. And I would say even as you grow older, there are things that can happen that insurance will cover that you will not necessarily have the finances to cover. So insurance is important. You should have insurance to cover the things that you do not have the money to cover, and then you should have the savings to cover the things that the insurance didn't cover, because a lot of times there's deductibles, or a lot of times maybe there's a limit on how much they'll pay for a certain item or thing that you need, and you have to come up with the balance. So that's where the importance of having this savings buildup is.
So I know a lot of young adults that have their first jobs, they don't really think about, when they're signing up for the job, should they do 401ks and stock plans and all this stuff. But it's really important for them to pay attention if that is offered to them, whether or not they should invest their money, because they need to think about their future and what they will need when they get older.
True. And unfortunately, because they're so young, they're at a stage where maybe they're getting engaged or they get married and they have their first child, and they don't have enough income to make all the expenses of a new apartment and to cover the child care and maybe gasoline to get back and forth to work. Unfortunately, these are the things that often go to the bottom of the list. And so it's very important that they should realize that it's really, really important that they do not put them at the bottom of the list, that they some kind of way invest in these things, that you get the life insurance and the health insurance, of course, because if you have kids, you definitely need that. Disability insurance, you need that depending on what type of job, in case you get hurt. You want to make sure your family is taken care of. Also, in regards to a 401k, most companies, if they have a 401k type plan, they have a matching element to it. And you should try to max that out. But if you cannot, at least put something towards it. Some companies, they will give you a certain percent into your 401k even if you don't put anything in. And what I'm finding is that young people are not signing up to put any additional in. They're just accepting whatever that employer is giving them. But it's important that you put as much, even if it's $10, even if it's $20, if you can do $50, it's important at that stage to put something, even if it's $5. It is important to put more into that at an early age. And as your income increases, you can always increase it.
Good advice. So what about stage 2?
Well, stage 2 is the area that the young adults have now matured. They've become older. And at this stage, they're at a stage where they can accumulate wealth. And they begin to increase their spending because their income went up. Now they want to move out of the apartments, move into a house. Maybe they move into a small house. Maybe they get a car. And maybe if they're married, they get a second car for the wife. And then maybe if things are really going well, they might decide they want to move up to a bigger house and a bigger car. So stage 2 is a time where they're really earning more and more money. They have more spending power, but the more they make, the more they spend.
Sounds like it's more important to make sure you don't spend more than you're saving.
It is very important, and I always recommend that you live below your means. If you're making $5,000 a month, you shouldn't be spending $5,000 a month. Make sure that you always spend less than that and put the difference in savings or investments. If you have a 2-income family where the husband is working and the wife is working, the smartest thing you can ever do is try to live off of one income and bank the other.
I know somebody that does that.
That's a wonderful way to go, because if anything happens to that other income, you're already keeping your expenses down. And so you're not, you'll be able to handle it. But the trick is, when we see more money, it's just part of our nature that we don't even realize it. We go out and we come right back up to that level. We get more money, we go up to that level. More money, we go up to that level. And so it just grows and grows. And so we have to realize that we don't need all that stuff. You don't really need all that stuff. During this stage, as young, mature adults, This is